Okay, well, today we have Karl Lillrud on the podcast today, and I'm so excited to be able to pick your brain, Karl. So thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and just give them some background in terms of your career and your specialties?
Oh, thank you. And wow, that's sort of a challenge for me. Obviously, I know a bit about myself, but I've been doing so much fun things over the years. But if we just cut it short, I started my first company when I was 16. This is back in 1996. And since then, I've been able to do amazing things all over the world. But I started in e-commerce very early and launched the first Nordic interior design store online back in 2001. And that's where it all started, about where my focus on e-commerce and understanding consumer behavior and personas and everything connected to actually running a successful business. And that is the base of it all. I mean, innovation instead of just following what others do and just trying to make use of a creative mindset instead of just making use of things that everybody else are doing, basically. So that's what I do on a daily basis and help companies all over the world with these things. Many of the companies that reach out to me, they contact me with sort of a blank sheet of paper and say, please, can you just look at what we do and tell us how we can do better?
So I love the term innovation that you just used because I think that's really important to touch on. Obviously, in drop shipping and with most of our users here at ZenDrop, many of them are really new to the concept of e-commerce and typically follow very cookie cutter formulas in order to create success online. So where do you suggest people tap into that level of innovation? Because we all have it within us, but when you're overwhelmed with all of the information that gets thrown at you when you're entering into the e-commerce space, how do you kind of push away the weeds to really focus on innovation and be able to stand out amongst the crowd?
Yeah, that's a great question, and for sure it's not easy. We are sort of we're sort of blinded by all the things that are just in front of us, and all the things on our to-do list and our backlog and everything. It sort of keeps us quite busy as it is. So stepping into the landscape of innovation tend to be quite challenging because we basically can't find the time. And with innovation, it also means that if I'm to invent something new or to further develop something in a direction that no one else have done before, that means that potentially I need to educate my users about it, and that's really expensive in terms of making use of the customers or the visitors' time. So what you need to do is to simplify everything as much as is ever possible. Cut all corners and try to think about, okay, so what is the real core within this whatever it is that we're trying to do? If that is to change how the checkout button is operating, or why is the shopping cart an actual cart online? I mean, we're not pushing around the cart online. Like, think about what we can do to simplify the life for our customers, or in the beginning for our visitors. How can we save their time? How can we basically save lives?
Save lives with e-commerce. I love that. So what are some of the strategies that you've taught to your students and through working with many companies in terms of easy ways, or not easy, but low effort, high reward ways to really tap into that way of making this experience easier for the customers?
The toolbox is huge, of course, but there are a few things that you should always, maybe not start with, but that you should always revisit from time to time. And many people might say, yeah, I spend tons of money on just driving traffic to my site. Okay, so then you need to think about your customer acquisition model. how do you actually generate traffic, and how do you make that traffic to convert into paying customers. That you can revisit on a weekly basis and just think about, okay, so what can I actually do? What have I learned with the data that I collected from last week that I can basically change bits and pieces, not the entire thing, never. Just try to make tiny tweaks and see how those tweaks can improve um, the way that your organic traffic is growing, or how you target your how you target your customers. I mean, in many situations we're focusing too broad. if i'm selling if I'm selling shoes, then it's quite possible that I'm targeting all the different type of shoe models that you can imagine. But in reality, it could be much better for me to focus on a particular type of product that where the competition is lower, and just focus everything, all my effort on that to generate traffic to a site that then, when the customer reaches the sites, offer a broader range of products. I think about um, if there's something that is at a high price in terms of ads, then think about what other things the same customer would be looking for. For example, how much would it cost for a Google ad for shoelaces compared to for the word the keyword shoes? I mean, if you're looking for shoelaces, then probably you own a pair of shoes, and you might be interested in buying another pair in the future. So think about the long term engagement rather than just having quick conversions. So the second thing I would say is to always develop and keep on developing your personas. And this is something that sounds quite obvious to people, but we can do it in so many different ways. And I have seen my clients been working on personas within the same organization in like 10 different ways, that where the marketing team are targeting one persona, the conversion team is targeting another persona, and the PR team is targeting a third persona. And then in reality, we're not looking at one persona, we're looking at maybe 10 or 100 different personas per e-commerce site. So think about who you think will pay for your products, and then see if you can validate that, so that you actually find out that they are paying for whatever you're doing.
I love that you touch on that, because we discuss a lot here at Zendrop about creating your ideal avatar. That's kind of the term that we use for it. And obviously, there's two different sides to creating your ideal avatar. There's what you think is going to work, and then there's what customers actually respond to your
Yeah.
product. And sometimes they don't mesh in the beginning, obviously. And so how do you go about refining that ideal avatar with your customers? What steps are we taking? What data are we looking at? How are we running ads to make sure that we're constantly refining and testing and making sure that we're creating a better picture of who we're trying to sell to?
Yeah, at the first, maybe you shouldn't run ads. Maybe you should just talk to a group of people. Like I really love the concept of a bus stop. Step up to people that you don't know, say, what do you think about this? Because you can never get the same level of details as when you actually talk to someone. And in reality, you will never get the same result as they say they will give you, because what people think is not what they do.
That's very true. So when it comes to running ads for a new online store, for example, and we have an avatar in mind that we think is going to want to buy, we'll go with the shoelace example because I think that's interesting. Um, how are we running these ads? Are we trying to start broad? Are we trying to define the key interests of the people we're targeting online immediately? What is your usual strategy that you recommend to your clients?
Long tail keywords, especially if it's a new store. So
Oh,
don't think
okay.
that you should buy the keyword shoes, because the competition is going to be far too high and the price for that is going to be enormous. But if you focus on problem solving rather than trying to push a sale, like, okay, so how can I make my sneakers stay white during the winter? Like, if you buy that long tail keyword or sentence, then you actually find clients who are looking for kits to clean their sneakers, and then you can target those, and the price for that is going to be way less than if you try to target these high value keywords that actually don't convert as high. So that's super interesting, because if you just buy the keyword shoes, yeah, you get people looking for shoes, but you also get all the people that are just out window shopping. They are not actually looking to buy something right now.
So it's not solution based, their searches. We want to create searches online that are solution based, and then your store and your products become the solution.
Exactly.
And I think we can tie that back to, the in terms of branding for an online store. In e-commerce and drop shipping specifically, there's hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of competitors trying to make it in the game, selling probably very similar products to what you already have on your store, if not the identical product, because they all come from the same place, right? And so creating that narrative of why you are the best solution seems to be, in your opinion, the be all end all of creating success with both your marketing, your branding, and your advertising.
Yeah. I mean, there is no secret sauce. There is no one way and that will solve all your problems. You need to keep on elaborating. You need to keep on trying to tweak whatever it is that you're doing, and in the end, it might turn out that you are heading in a direction that you didn't think of from the beginning. Maybe your store will actually be the shoelaces.com. I mean, maybe you thought you're running a shoe store, but you find out that I can actually generate a massive amount of traffic on this really strange niche of a product segment.
That is really interesting. And I think that that's the importance of testing multiple types of products, specifically in drop shipping, and making sure that we always have new and updated products, and also not sitting on products that aren't doing well. I
Yeah,
think in drop shipping, you have the luxury of changing your product immediately and importing 10 new ones by tomorrow if the ones that you're running today don't work. And so that's the luxury of drop shipping. And so I've seen a lot of stores, specifically with Zendrop, start in one direction and think they're going to be the sneaker leader in the game. And then they might end up selling shoe cleaner or shoelaces, and you never know.
yeah.
So in that process, how do we decide when it's time to let go of a branding concept or a product concept? In the testing game, what are the criteria in your mind where it's time to cut your losses and try to test and move forward?
I personally would like to say always, but but in reality, what I'm trying to say is that you should always be prepared to go in another direction, but you should never do it without proper testing. And even when you decide to cut your losses and go in another direction, don't quit the previous direction. Maybe quit the ad spending, but I mean, if you're having traffic to a site to a product page, then maybe remove the product from your category overview and have it as a hidden product, but uh, but don't delete it, so to say, or don't unpublish it because you still have traffic. But remove the distraction from the overall overview of the website.
That's a really interesting concept. So you're saying basically if you're seeing a product that is doing kind of well or is definitely getting some traffic, but most definitely not driving most of your store's revenue, we don't completely unimport it. We just run separate advertising to that product page and not let it show up in your catalog. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting concept that I haven't heard before.
Yeah, and it also ties back to SEO, and whenever you're trying to generate organic traffic, it will take you 6 months or more to actually if to actually get some proper placement in the search engines. So when you think you're going in the wrong direction, maybe it's actually not true. It just might take a bit longer time. But think about your customer acquisition cost, and think about how much you actually spend on these uh, non-converting leads. So the third thing to add to that is to always think about how can I generate organic traffic in a way that my competitors are not operating.
Okay, I'm really glad you touched on that because that was actually going to be my next question to you. And it was more regarding not using paid advertising as a means of driving traffic to your store. Because obviously, when you're a new e-commerce store owner, with limited funds, but also want the most exposure, paid advertising makes the most sense. Test your products, get your data, try to refine your brand avatar as well as your brand image. But we're not just trying to be a dropshipping store. We're trying to create brands. We're trying to create recognizable brands that will ideally one day white label and become something more past a fulfillment resource. And so, what are those key features of a brand and online brand content that you believe really drive credible and converting organic traffic?
Um, so the answer is a bit complex. So I think we should cut it up into different pieces.
Let's do it.
A brand is something that is really expensive to build awareness of. So in the beginning, of course, you like to have a fancy brand, and you probably spend some money on creating a logo and then buying a domain that you think feels real good. Um, but your customers in the beginning will most probably be one-time customers, because you don't know yet how to get them back to the store. You haven't most probably you haven't understood how to actually get customers to get back to your store 5 times. That takes some time for everyone. It takes some time, so you don't need to worry about that you're doing it wrong, but keep in mind that you should definitely think about how you can get the customers back 5 times to the store to buy, not just to visit. And when you figure that out, and that's different for every store, how you actually make that happen. um, I mean, depending on what you sell, there will be different seasons depending on who your persona is. Their period of the year that they like to spend their money on buying these particular products will be different. So you need to figure out your own uh, knowledge base about how you're operating. And then when you have that, try to think about how you can create a long-term engaging sales funnel that is revisited. But you should probably include as well some things into that long-term engagement model that is not focusing on conversion, that is basically just holding hand, just showing that you're here and you are there, not to push them to buy, but actually to support them in one way or another.
Let's talk more about that. What are some of your strategies to really get that message across?
Uh, so you should think about the conversion goals. So a conversion goal could be anything that is basically defined as your goal, and the end goal could be a result of 10 minor goals. And obviously the end goal will be that they spend their money in the store, but the first goal that you're having is to get them to the store, and the second goal is for them to start showing you in one way or another which product they are interested in. And then you can start trying to build an engagement model around this. Okay, so I know that you have visited my store. I can now use pixels and retarget you using ads based on the knowledge that I just got. And as you looked at this product and this product, then I know that you're most probably interested in okay, let's say female focused shoelaces. which is starting to become a rather stupid example, but still, let's play with that. um, so that means that probably I'm not as interested in shoelaces during the summer because I will probably wear some lighter shoes. And for me as a customer, I would probably buy shoelaces in the autumn because then I might update my wardrobe of shoelaces. Yeah, as I said, this is starting to be a silly example.
I like that we're rolling with it though. I think it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm trying to aim at is to break up the sales cycle, to find these different parts of where you can communicate with a sales message and where you can just keep your customer aware of that you're there to support them. So maybe in the summer when you normally wouldn't sell as much, then maybe just do something funny about it. Just show some interesting video of how your staff is bored in the warehouse or whatever. Like do something that is not expected instead of sending out these fancy emails with your entire product catalog that nobody ever reads, and you'll just be marked as a spam distributor, and that's just going to harm both your brand and any messaging that you'll do in the future, and even potentially your order confirmations and stuff like that.
So we're talking about getting outside of our comfort zones here in terms of branding, messaging, marketing, all that kind of stuff. And again, it ties back to the concept of you are one in a million in terms of your competitors, typically. And so creating that unique narrative for your brand, even if we're not at the point where we're creating the massive recognizable brand, right? Just something to get your consumers to view you different than the four other shoelaces they saw online that week, if that's what they're truly searching for, because they're probably getting a lot of targeted ads for shoelaces at that point. So how do you recommend, we can kind of tie this back to the innovation concept, like really trying to stand out and be different. How do you recommend for those who are following this cookie cutter step-by-step guide right now, trying to get their stores off the ground and maybe aren't tapping into their creative side? How do you recommend that they start doing that?
The first way to basically push yourself into that corner is to look at your competitors and think about what they're doing and don't do that. Let's set that up as a mental rule for you to open your creative part of your inner self, so to say. Like if you think about your competitors and you know a little bit about how they are approaching their customers, you've been looking at the ads they push, you might have tried to backtrack and see what they are doing in terms of SEO and so on and so on. If you set that up as a rule, a multiple rules that you could use to basically eliminate how you're not allowed to think, or specify how you're not allowed to think, then that opens up that you need to stay creative. And in the beginning, it's going to be super difficult for sure. But what you could do to step over that first obstacle is to come up with all the stupid ideas. So don't try to come up with the best ideas. Come up with the stupid ideas. Like, okay, so if I were to steal all the shoelaces from everybody in a soccer team, and then in the shoes put in a flyer about shoelaces.com, then they would know about it. Maybe it's not the best way to get them to feel happy about the store, but I mean, come up with the stupid ideas, and step by step that will lead you in a direction that you have not thought about before. And try to cut up these stupid ideas into smaller parts. Like, okay, now I know that if you don't have any shoelaces, you need to buy a pair of shoelaces. In what situations would you not have shoelaces, or in what situation could this actually happen? Okay, let's say that from a mental point of view, maybe parents think that really greasy shoes is sort of mentally equal to not having shoelaces, because it just looks horrible with the greasy shoes. So if you just send out a funny video about how you can just update the wardrobe for your kids by pushing in some new really cool shoelaces, and actually that could become a funny thing, but actually also a solution to a problem.
Yeah, or you can provide, resource. As you're talking, it's making my brain come up for ideas for shoelaces. If anyone is selling shoelaces out there, we are giving you a marketing plan right here. So
Yeah,
maybe run with it.
exactly.
But yeah, or you could do videos of different cool ways to tie your shoes with shoelaces. You know how everyone does the cool designs, or yeah. So I like what you're saying. It's just like kind of riff on ideas. Let your brain dump whatever it possibly can think of, and the more it does that, the easier an image that's cohesive with your brand might pop into your head.
Yeah, exactly. And what you should do at that point is that, okay, let's use a concept of a whiteboard. You write all the bubbles up in the whiteboard, and then for every bubble, when you feel that you're sort of exhausted of all these stupid ideas, then for every bubble you look at it, and then you try to break that bubble up in 3 to 5 pieces, and you see a pattern after a while. When you have broken up a bunch of these bubbles, you see, okay, so there's actually one part where I'm in these bubbles are creating a problem, and another part where I identify an opportunity, and also I'm trying to make a funny twist on it. And then after a while, you see, okay, so I have actually created similar things. How can I actually spin on this? Because there is something here that I can use.
Exactly. I like that. I want to switch gears for a second and ask about social media as part of marketing strategy. And I want to see what your thoughts are on this. We get a lot of questions here at Zendrop in terms of how impactful and what strategies should be utilized for social media, or how much of your energy while initially building a store should be placed on social media. And I'd love to just hear your thoughts on how you've seen that world play into the success of your clients.
Um, it's a difficult question because social media, there's many different uh, topics that
Types.
this include. Um, so one thing is brand awareness, obviously. Then you should think about building brand awareness. And the other thing is to just generate traffic. And the third thing is to generate converting traffic. So I see these as three totally different things. Depending on what you're actually looking for, maybe in your ad, you're not even using a logo because you just want them to see the product. You don't want to cause any distraction. You want them to see nothing but the product. You want that to stand out, and then you play a little bit about the messaging, and potentially you do something with how you may take the photo of the product that stands out, and that you use that as your branding. So let's take the example with shoes. Maybe take all the photos of the shoes upside down, and then eventually, if you see that this is actually working, then think about flipping your logo upside down. Like, just play with it. Like, okay, so that is the upside down store. Nice.
The
Uh,
upside down store.
yeah. But try to always eliminate distraction and think about why you're running the ads. What is your goal with social media ads? Is it to build brand awareness? Is it to drive traffic, or is it to generate an income? If it's to generate an income and actually build revenue, then you should focus on that and nothing else. You should basically step away from building brand awareness and just think about, okay, so what can I do if I spend $10? How can I make sure that I earn 20? And when you manage to create that secret recipe, then try to scale that up. Either just push in more money, or think about how you can do the same tweak or a hack or a strategy for the other product in your store. So don't try to do it with all the products. Try to find 1 or 10 products that you A/B test with and see, okay, where can I generate a pickup? Where can I actually create an audience that is interested in this? Because we're all quite tired of having ads everywhere in our lives.
That is very true. And I think it's, I'm not sure if you're ever on TikTok or if TikTok is a form of social that you utilize a lot with your clients. But what's really interesting about how TikTok is running advertising right now is they disguise their ads as just other TikToks on your feed. And it's really interesting. I'll watch one, I might be scrolling through the Zendrop TikTok and a video that seems really fascinating pops up. And then 5 seconds into the video, it says sponsored, and you're like, dang it, I just watched an ad. I'm so upset with myself that I watched an ad. But I'd like that you touched on the fact that there are different purposes for social media. I think that we get bogged down with, again, the step-by-step cookie cutter things to do to build an online store, that we don't take a step back to remember what's the purpose of each and every one of these things that we're doing. And so you're right. If all you're trying to do in the initial stages of a new business or any e-commerce business is to generate revenue from directly driven traffic, then, right now your brand awareness shouldn't matter, because it's not what's going to make you money. When you start to have time to be able to build on that brand, then maybe that's when you start utilizing more of your resources for social. Or maybe, something that we recommend is test out the highest converting form of social media for your niche, right? There are certain products that are going to do incredibly well on, or certain stores, I should say, that would do incredibly well on TikTok that would just absolutely tank on Twitter or
Yeah,
something of the sort. So doing that research is probably really important as you're experimenting with the world of social.
definitely. So maybe you should actually think of social media from a persona point of view as well, not just your personas. I mean, your clients, your customers, but think of social media in the same way. Okay, so what what is my approach? Why am I using TikTok or Twitter or whatever? What what is my end goal, and why do I think that this is the best platform for me to reach my clients? And then again, test it. Talk to people that you don't know. That's like the most important part. Listen to what people say that you don't know, and don't don't ask them questions during their explanation. Just say, what do you think of this? Mm-hmm. 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 And then just let them talk. Don't guide them in directions, because that's where you basically shoot yourself in the leg. You're trying to say to them what it is that you're looking for, and then they start looking for that. So don't don't do that. Just stand next to them and see how they think, and where they get stuck or where they don't get it. If you're playing with social media and trying to do it in a funny way, is it actually funny? Or is the person that you're talking to not your potential customer?
That's a very good point. The bus stop strategy. I hope you have that
Yeah.
coined by this point, because you
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, so I'm buying it right now. Busstopstrategy.com.
I'll make sure this episode is posted after you've purchased.
Yeah.
Um, so, Karl, give us a little bit of insight. I know that you have some really exciting projects for your own business coming up that can be of incredible resource to the Zendrop audience. So, give us a little insight on what you've been working on and what our audience can be excited about seeing coming soon.
Yeah, of course. So I'm doing lots of things all the time, and from my point of view, I never work. I just do the things that I love, and that's why if you visit my LinkedIn page or profile, you'll see that I have done quite many things over the years, and I just love that. I love to try new things, and and basically push myself outside my comfort zone, which I also talk about in my TED Talk, which you find on TED.com, about how to do the impossible and make better use of your subconscious mind and things like that. So that's totally non-related to e-commerce, but also very much related to running a business. Um, but on the other side, I'm also focusing on really much on making sure that people learn and get inspired, and not just like the normal school where we try to memorize things. I'm much more into on making sure that people understand the full picture, how things are related, understanding the logic behind it, so that you don't need to memorize things, but actually understand it from a relevant point of view. And then with that, you can motivate whatever decisions you take within your organizations. And you can also motivate whatever decisions you take towards the board of directors of the company that you're working for, or whoever might be questioning your strategy. So I'm building a quite extensive education program online about basically starting from nothing to running a very successful online business. So that is going to be launched in quite short time. So just visit karllillrud.com and make sure that you sign up to know more about it when it's actually launched. And I make sure that you get some extra free episodes to start off with.
We'll create an exciting code for you guys to be able to use once the course is launched. Karl was giving me some information on it before we started recording, and I'm personally excited to take it myself. That's really, really cool that it's so extensive and full of so much knowledge. So, yeah, you guys, go to karllillrud.com. That's KarlLillrud.com to be able to subscribe to his email list and make sure that you're getting updates about when that course goes live, because you will not want to miss it.
Thank you.
Well, awesome, Karl. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. I know that our audience is going to find a lot of insight from all of your extensive career experience coming into not only this incredible course, but just being able to sit down with us. So I want to thank you again for taking some time out of your busy life to be able to chat with me for a little bit.
Yeah, of course. It's been really interesting, and I love these type of discussions and just hearing your thoughts and questions. I mean, it's not it's not easy to be an entrepreneur and to step outside and show that you have created a business, and then in the beginning you feel that, okay, so I'm trying to do what the big companies are doing, and it's costing me a lot of money, and I don't really see a good ROI. So the last advice is to really think about what you can do to generate free traffic. So maybe don't think so much about organic and what organic traffic is. Think about how can I get one customer, and how can I make that customer become someone who like to tell the world about that they just bought what it is that you're selling.